Hiya, hiya. Welcome to another one of these pandemoniums. Pandemics or panoramas. I don't know what the hell to call this anymore because I don't know what's happening. The world is so upside down. My favorite show is Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. It was a joke back in the 50s, but now it's true. And the only two safe people are those guys, those astronauts. They don't even want to hear it anymore, probably. But we're having a great time here in different places because we're away from Manhattan right now, where there's a lot of action, or at least I should say that for myself. So anyway, I got Donna Rubin here. And Donna, how are you, Donna?
I'm good. So you go way, way back, right?
Yeah. Way back.
You go way, way back. And of the history of hot yoga, right?
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't hot then. It was very cool. And literally, they did not have the hot room.
Oh.
It was mild. What is a health club? And we were out on one of their cells. They put you on the side. They don't want to show you off as doing the sissy exercise.
Right.
Yeah. And it was mostly women back then, which was fine with me.
Yeah.
But then the guys started liking it for some reason, and they came alive. I think it was the women. That you'd find them looking in the mirror at the girls more than they were at themselves doing the positions.
So that's the real secret. That's really what's going on.
That was the yoga practice, we call it. I love Donna for a lot of reasons, and I wanted to celebrate her because most people, she's very private. That's first of all. And she's not ever been seeking glamour or spotlight or fame. She liked money, but who doesn't? And she took on a very big task when she went to a private school in Toronto, and it was the ballet. She learned the ballet. Can we call it ballerina? Become a ballerina? Is that a correct term? I don't even know if I'm right with that.
Yeah, it could be used, the term ballerina. Yes.
Okay, so you went to this very strict school, right?
Yes. Did you see the documentary that I made?
did.
Oh, you
yes,
did.
I
Okay.
did.
Yeah. So that's why it's pulling all together, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I saw the documentary, and you were going to put it on TV or something at one time, and I saw it in a club. When we were all gathered for it.
That was for my birthday, right?
Your
my birthday party. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
You came to that. So by the way, it did get on TV. It actually did get on TV. It was on CBC Canada. And actually, I won awards and everything for it. Can you believe it?
Oh well, yeah. I can't believe the way you dance. and the other part, which is I'm jumping ahead, but you were headed for Broadway.
Yeah.
And some people that's not legitimate though, is it? I mean, would Lincoln Center be considered more legitimate than Broadway?
Well, they call it Broadway. When Lincoln Center is considered a Broadway house. Yeah.
So when you danced in Toronto, and you did that for a few years, wasn't it? Couple of years?
Yeah, I was in the ballet school, and then I was in the ballet company, National Ballet of Canada. Yeah, for 4 years.
And your mother and father let you go to that school?
Yeah, they did. When I'm thinking about it now, and I see my son, who's my age, the age that I left to go to this ballet school, and I don't know. I just can't even sort of believe it when I think about it now, because he's 13. That's how old I was when I went. Yeah.
And discipline. Tell me about the discipline, because I know a little bit, but tell me.
Well, ballet school, I mean, first of all, everybody was very serious, and you had to, basically ballet dancers are supposed to be seen and not heard. You're not supposed to have an opinion about anything. And you're supposed to just basically listen to everything that you're told and just do what you're told. But, because if you're training to be at first, the corps de ballet, the corps de ballet, like the Rockettes or anything like that, you're trained to be absolutely perfect with everybody else, right? You're not supposed to be an individual. So that's part of your training as a dancer, is to be very, very disciplined and be part of the group in a way. So they don't want voices. Just you do your thing, you listen.
Well, was Montreal better known for ballet than Toronto?
No, Toronto, the company in Toronto was the biggest company in Canada. And it's called, there's only a handful of what you would call sort of the major classical ballet companies you know, the biggest companies that do all the full length classical ballets. And then the other companies are maybe a little bit smaller that do more contemporary. You know, they might do a few of the classical ballets, but they concentrate a little more on contemporary, and they're usually smaller companies. So, you know, there's only a handful, like I said, the Royal Ballet, Paris Opera Ballet, the Kirov and the Bolshoi Ballet. You know, and National Ballet of Canada was pretty much right up there with and of course New York. You know, American Ballet Theatre and New York City Ballet, and we are National Ballet of Canada, and the company in Australia and Denmark were also, you know, pretty major.
Yeah. Well, Russia's probably got the corner on the market as far as they keep it going. You know where they keep it going to? I was on a trip to Estonia, which is at the beginning of the Baltics. You know, and it was Russian. That was part of the Soviet Union, not any longer. Okay. But they have a very big ballet company there because it's Russian. Yeah. You know, supported by the government. Yeah. I worked at 20th Century Fox. You know, I was creative director, and I worked on Turning Point.
Oh, I know. So that movie is what caused me to move to New York. That movie was like major in my life. Like that was it. You know, once I saw that movie, I was coming to New York, and that was it. I mean, I saw that movie. It had to have been at least 20 times. I don't know. I just watched it over and over and over and over again. It was like amazing.
So did I.
I'm sure. I mean, it had such a major impact. So it's kind of funny that years later we would meet each other, to be honest, because it was such a major part of my life, that movie.
Well, you know, Herbert Ross. Listen, I spent so much time with that film.
That's amazing.
And if you think that they're precise in dance, you should have seen what it was like in editing. And I'll tell you, Baryshnikov was featured dancer. And then I met Edward Layella. Is that how? Vallela, yeah, in Miami. I met him in Miami. He was part of that company. I met him at one time. I don't know. I've been surrounded by you guys dancing around me a lot.
Yeah, right? So interesting. But no, definitely that put the bug into my head because, you know, I love the National Ballet of Canada. It's just a beautiful company. But as soon as I saw that movie, it just put that bug into my head that I wanted to be.
Well, here's the tie-in.
It was always there, and eventually I didn't get to New York till I was like 30. Can you hear me?
Really? Yeah, you cut out a little bit. I heard 30.
Yeah, no, by the time I actually really officially moved to New York was when I was 30, which, you know, after I got into Carousel at Lincoln Center. So it took me that long, but I did get there eventually.
That's a different kind of dance, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so that was when I went from ballet to musical theater. So first I was in Phantom of the Opera in Toronto. Yeah. And so I did that for over 4 years. And then I came into Carousel at Lincoln Center, and that's a little bit more sort of, I guess you could say, Broadway dance style. But both of those musicals, they needed professional ballet dancers, though. You know, it's not like Fosse or jazz or something. It was like the classical ballet, you know, training and background, and hope that you could sing as well, because it was a musical, you know. But the singing wasn't, of course, as important as the ballet for those two musicals, anyway.
I saw Swan Lake done by guys.
Oh yeah, that was cute.
It was weird.
Well, it was an interesting interpretation, shall we say?
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that was in New York on a big stage. You know, I mean, it wasn't in an offbeat theater.
Oh no, that was a major production. That choreographer. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So it's so funny. Right now, I'm actually trying to locate all of the cast members of the Canadian cast of Phantom of the Opera for 10 years. It was open for 10 years, 1989 to 1999. And that's one of my little projects right now is I've located most to have like a little Zoom reunion and possibly, you know, do some fun little thing with all of us together. So, you know, that'll be nice to see people I haven't seen in many, many years.
Does Andrew Lloyd Webber know you're doing this?
No.
Did you spend time with him?
No, he only, you know what? I only met him on opening night. He only came on opening night. Hal Prince, of course, was around. You know, he was directing it, so he was there. But no, Andrew Lloyd Webber. I have one picture of me and him, you know, but it was like opening night, and that was it. Hi, goodbye, you know. So I just watched last night. Oh, it was that 25th anniversary of Les Mis. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's past the 25 years. It was a replay. Oh, it's so good. It's just
you can't get tired. You never get tired of it. And plus, I'm master of the house.
Oh, so, yeah. That's a good part for you.
Oh my God! You know that show. First of all, there was a time. I'm going off the story now with you, but my daughters, who were your age at that time, 13 and 10, I took them to New York to a Broadway camp, which was a whole summer of learning a show.
Oh, nice.
And they learned Les Mis.
Wow.
And Rent, two different kinds of theater.
Yeah.
And they both have never given that up. It goes on forever because, you know, every time it plays somewhere, either one of those shows, both daughters, one lives here in Florida, another one in California, and they're attracted to that, and they know the score, they know everything about those shows because they learn them. Right. And the Camp Broadway, you pick a routine and you do that routine. So that was a great experience for them. I think that's wonderful for any child, actually.
So fun.
If you have an interest in theater, you know, and you did. Yeah. So why did you stop? Why did you get off that train?
Well, by the time I finished the tour of Carousel, I was already at a certain age where the dancing career is, you know, coming towards the end, right? And I knew that I was going to have to come back to New York and start auditioning all over again. And I knew that I was limited to what I could, you know, the shows that I could get, because my singing was not my forte. My dancing, you know, was my forte. So it was sort of right at that period where I was thinking, you know what, I really think I need to find something else to be able to make some money besides doing and like I said, I was lucky because I was working almost nonstop in such great things, but you know, it kind of freaked me out. I think I was 35. Was I 35? And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't do anything else except dance. I can't do anything else. And I can't sing as well as I but in my mind, hope that I could sing. So, yeah. So I was really thinking about making a transition, and I wasn't sure what that's going to be. And as a matter of fact, I was in Florida, right where you are, I think, visiting with my sister who lives in Florida. And I was staying with her for a while. My family kept saying, why don't you forget about that show business already? It's enough with that show business. Go work for your sister. She has a business in Florida. Go work for her. You don't need to be doing this anymore. So they were sort of putting like this bug in my head. So I went to spend a bit of time in Florida. And in order to stay in shape, I needed to do something. And the only thing I could really do was take some yoga. And right at that time, I had just started taking a bit of yoga. And sure enough, it happened to be this hot yoga studio in Hollywood, Florida. And the director of that studio was also trained by Jimmy Barkin, right? So, and that was in Hollywood, Florida. So I would go every day because I had no ballet class to go to or dance class. So I would go to yoga every day. And my sister, this is a great story. And my sister, she loves to hear this story because she takes total credit for my whole yoga career. Total credit. She would say, I, you know, as a dancer and being in shape and every day doing what I needed to do, it's like habit, right? So instead of dance, it was yoga. And it was this hot thing, which I was like, what is this? This is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And, you know, this sweating and all this stuff, I thought it was so weird. But immediately my body just loved it. I thought, wow, like this is perfect for me because I started to get my flexibility back because at a certain age, you know, the flexibility starts to, you know, get a little less and less. And if you're dancing, you need to have good flexibility. So anyway, I was going every day. And I remember it was one Saturday morning. And my sister, by the way, get this, her job is promoting liquor. Okay. It could not be any more opposite than me. We could not be any more opposite. Okay. She spent, you know, clubs, promotions, this and that. And I'm busy sweating in hot rooms and, you know, dancing and stuff like that. So we couldn't be any more opposite. So one morning, it was Saturday morning, and I was going off to take the yoga class. And of course, she sleeps till 11, 12, whatever. So she comes down the stairs and I'm ready to leave the house. Where are you going? Where are you going? I said, I'm going to take my yoga class. She says, this is priceless. She says, again? You're going again to yoga? And I was like, what do you mean? Like this is like a day thing, you know? She's like, why are you going again? She says, you can teach it by now. You don't need to take it. You can teach it. And I was like, the light bulb went off in my head. I was like I wasn't thinking of that, right? I'm just thinking I'm doing my yoga every day for myself. I wasn't thinking that, of course, I could actually teach what it is that I was doing every day, you know? Anyway, that's sort of what sparked the little light bulb in my head about teaching it. So it's not till I went back to New York that I started to sort of pursue the idea of teaching. And I rented actually a dance studio and invited friends of mine to take my class first to see
where was this located?
It was right on 8th Avenue, very, very close to the first studio that we opened. Okay. It was literally a few blocks away, and it was a ballroom dance studio. And I rented the studio, invited some friends, and then I sort of put myself on the schedule every day at noon to teach this hot yoga. Of course, there was no heating system or anything, but it was summer, so it was hot, right? And I was practicing to see whether or not I would like to do this or not. And it was just the right thing. It's talk about right time, right place, felt right. I felt like I was able to do a good job. And that's when I started to pursue the idea of what would be involved in terms of officially teaching with some kind of certification, because I didn't even know there was any certification. I didn't even know that Bikram was a person or anything like that. And so I started doing my sort of research, and that's when I found out all of that. And I just remember, because right away I said to myself, there has to be a studio in New York. Like, why is there not a hot yoga studio in New York? I couldn't understand. Like, to me, it didn't make any sense. Yeah. So I called him in LA, and I didn't think he would pick up the phone and, like, you know, take a call from a stranger. You know, I didn't know much about him, but but sure enough, I picked up the phone, I called, and he got on the phone, and I said, listen, I just want to let you know, I just love this yoga. I just love it. It's perfect. I really think that there needs to be an official hot yoga studio in New York. I would love to do it. So what's involved? What would be involved in doing that? And he said, you come and take my teacher training and you go back to New York and you can open a studio. I said, really? That's it? He said, yes. I said, okay.
But you had to give him about $5,000.
Yeah, I took every penny I had. Every penny I had, because I had already been off tour of Carousel for a year. So, you use up all your money when you're after you come back from a tour. Right. And I just took every last penny of my money and went off to that training. But I already knew what I was going to do. Like, I went with a mission. I was like, I'm going to this training and I'm coming back to New York and I'm opening the studio. I didn't have a penny. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about any of it. I just knew that I was coming back to New York and I was going to open a studio. That was it. Like, I just
was that on Chambers Street? Was that the one?
No, the Chambers Street was the one that was called Yoga Connection. That was not like an official. I mean, they were teaching it there, but nobody would ever know that because there was no name. There was nothing that said hot, and it was hidden down in Tribeca where nobody walked by, but they were teaching it there. So I would go and I would take some classes there, of course.
Me too. And that's where I first met you.
I think so. Yeah.
And it was right next door to, if it was such a bad place, why was Lululemon right next door? Remember they were selling those things?
Were they?
Yeah. Yeah, they had those outfits. Maybe they were in part of the studio. Maybe.
Oh yeah, but yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So
it was unfolding.
It was, because actually the woman who started Lululemon was also at the Bikram teacher training. She was Canadian. Yeah. She was at the training, and she had started to sell some of her stuff then, before she had even opened. We were one of the first people to carry Lululemon at our studio when we opened on 8th Avenue. We were carrying Lululemon right back then. So
I used to say to Bikram, you're selling Earth shoes and we go barefoot? The hell do you care what I'm walking with? But that was another thing. Remember, they were having these shoes where they're the gravity was different. You know, just like walking on a beach or something like that. I don't know. A lot of marketing going on.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
But I was in on the marketing side, watching all of that, because don't forget, that's what I did for a living. And when I met Shirley MacLaine, she was taking Bikram Yoga over at the sanctuary.
Right.
And she had brought him over from India and introduced him to her friend. That's how I first got in, because I used to go to lunch with Shirley and Annie Bancroft when they were doing Turning Point.
Oh, so, boy, they're my heroes.
But I didn't have a clue about doing the yoga. I mean, that wasn't in the cards yet, you know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, I don't know, where did you meet Jen? You had a partner later on.
So then when I came back, I did the teacher training. When I came back from the teacher training, I actually did start teaching at Yoga Connection, because that was the only place, you know, to teach it. And while I was waiting to figure out how I was going to open a studio and how I was going to get money to do it. And another friend of mine who was also teaching there, she would teach early in the morning, and I would teach at night.
Yeah.
And she knew that I wanted to, you know, to open a studio. And Jen used to take the early morning class at 7 in the morning. She was also in marketing. She worked for IMG, and she had moved back from San Francisco back to New York. So she was taking classes in the morning, and they were in the dressing room. And Jen said to Anne-Marie, how come there's no like official Bikram studio, you know, in Manhattan? I mean, I came in from San Francisco, and I moved, I took my apartment as close as I could to the studio, but, you know, there's not as many classes as there was in San Francisco, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Anne-Marie said to her, oh, well, that's funny you say that, because my friend Donna, you know, would really like to, you know, open a studio. Oh, no. And she said, I would invest. She said, how come there's no studio? And I would invest in a studio. And so Anne-Marie said, oh, well, my friend Donna is looking for an investor. You know, you guys should meet. I mean, it was really that simple. And so I got her number, and I told her what I was interested in doing. I told her I wanted to open up in the theater district, because I felt like a lot of the Broadway people and everybody would really, you know, like to, would get into it and everything. And so,
and you were right.
Yeah. So we had the one lunch, we had lunch, and I think I had like a little piece of paper this big where I put my business plan on it. And I tried to figure out, you know, how many people I needed and rent. I knew nothing about spaces in New York, how to get a space, how much they were, how to build a space, nothing. So I had my little paper, and I did my little business plan. And I said to Jen, I said, well, this is what I want to do. This is how much I think it's going to be. And this is what I think would be great to do it in the theater district, you know, blah, blah, blah. Are you interested? And she said yes, and that was it. One lunch, 1 hour. We've been partners for over 20 years.
And you ran the best studios in the country.
Well, thank you.
That's true. And you kept it going, and you modernized and kept improving. I mean, everything from the details of Dr. Bronner's soap to fresh, clean, new towels. I mean, you never let anything. You were first class all the way.
Well, I was always trying to sort of get better. I was always thinking, what's going to make the experience better? What else can we do to make things better? You know, I was always trying to think like that.
The heating system. I think you were revolutionary with that, I believe.
Well, yes and no. I don't know. I mean, I was sort of like, I was trying to wrap my brain about heating systems, and it was very like complicated. Like, there was no official heating system that was designed for this. I mean, Bikram just stuck these massive heaters up from the ceiling, blew out hot air, and that was it. Yeah. So, you know, I tried to do something kind of similar. And then I met somebody along the way, and that's a whole other side story, but someone else came to our studio who was kind of a mechanical guy, and he also liked yoga, and he was sort of helping as our handyman. And I said to him, you know, somebody should really like design a proper heating system. The bottom line is this guy ended up being the official sort of producer of heating systems, because I just kept saying, like, somebody has got to do this. Help us out, you know, get a heating system that works. Anyway, so he did go ahead and do a whole side business on that, which was pretty cool.
And then what about the floors? That was another issue. putting, it was carpeted at first, I think, at one time.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, like it was pretty challenging because we always had to find the fine line between honoring Bikram and what he wished, because we were using his name and we were using his style and he had his desires. And then what I sort of felt was what needed to happen to make things work. And there was always that sort of fine line, you know, dancing that fine line. So, you know, we bugged him for years about the carpet, and he definitely was very, very against it, just totally against it for some strange reason. I have no idea why. And finally, we got to a point where we were like, you know what, we just can't do this anymore because we're competing with other people out there who are doing hot yoga and they don't have a carpet, and people don't like this. They don't like the smell. And so, you know, we were constantly trying to figure out, well, what is it that we're going to do and what is it that we're not going to do? And so that was one of the things we finally decided we had to get rid of the carpet. And it was a good thing. I mean, it was really a good thing. Yeah. So
also, one of the things that I recall too vividly was the Bikram argument about Pilates.
yeah.
We're not going to have Pilates. I think there were some Pilates share classes at one time.
Well, at one time we had room upstairs that could be used and rented out to someone else. And so a friend of mine was a Pilates instructor, and we sort of thought, well, hey, you know, there's doors here. It's a separate business. So they moved in, they put all their stuff in, everything was going to be great. And then Bikram said, nope, you can't have Pilates. Tell them to get out right now, get rid of them. And so we listened to him, and that's what we did. But here we are 20 years later. And as you can see, we had to change, and we had to add new classes and new things. And this is what everybody's doing to survive right now. I mean, you know, you have to survive. And
what about the hour-long classes? Are they still 90 minutes and all 26 positions, or did you change that?
No, I mean, we have 60-minute classes, 75-minute classes, and 90-minute classes. So we have all three. And what I say is, and Bikram used to say this as well too, it's better to do some yoga than no yoga. I mean, if you can't make it in that day, or if you don't have time that day, would you rather do a 60-minute class than no class at all? So what I did was I basically decided which postures to do twice and which postures to do once. And so we get through the full series. Of course, you don't feel as good as you would do for a 90-minute class, but would I rather do my class that day than not do my class that day? Yes. So, you know, again, it's kind of like, you know, compromise and everything. How are you going to make it work? So a lot of people, I tell you, there's so many people that used to say to us, I love hot yoga. I would love to do it, but there is no way I can spend 90 minutes because it's not 90 minutes. It's 3 hours, right? By the time you get there, then you take the class, then you cool down, then you shower, then you get home. It's a 3 hour. It's not a 90-minute situation. So people don't have time, especially in New York City. That was the other thing that I did. I tried to use common sense. And I said, you know, being in show business and being in New York, you know that everybody has different schedules. And you were the perfect example, right? You were working like late at night. Other people are working early in the morning. I said, so there has to be classes throughout the whole day so that everybody can take their class. So we were the first people to really have the same thing like every 2 hours throughout the whole day. And now people call it boutique fitness. But guess what? We started boutique fitness, okay? Everybody else is doing what we were doing, okay? Starting with Soul Cycle, who did, you know, cycling throughout the day. But I was just convinced that it was the right thing to do. I just knew that people would be coming in throughout the whole day. And that's what happened. Of course, you know, 6 o'clock is going to be your busier class, but why not spread it out? Why not spread out, you know, through the whole day? So
plus you had 3 studios at one time. Or was it 4?
4. We had 4. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the number 1 market, and Bikram is in LA, which is the number 2 market. So, I mean, that's ironic in itself.
Yeah.
You know, of course he had an auditorium filled with people. That was his style. You know, I think he'd rather have 1,000 people sweating on a carpet than.
Yeah, I never liked that idea because I personally, again, I was using my dance background and everything, and I sort of liked the personal connection and the correction aspect. So if you have a big class like that, how are you going to be correcting everybody? What are you going to be doing with 100 people in a room? You know, we have like 30 people in a room, or 15, 20, 30, 35 people. You can have like a relationship with everybody. If you have one room with 80 people, who are you talking to? You're not communicating with anybody, right? So I kind of like the intimacy in a way. Bikram never liked that. He always wanted one big, huge room in New York, and he never got it.
He's a performer. That's why, you know, he did get it. It was Times Square when you gave him the solstice in Times Square.
We taught it, not him. He never taught it, you know.
That's right. Well, his wife came.
She did.
Rajashri did.
She did. No, yeah. I know. Yeah, that would have been, you know, that would have been really actually great if he would have been able to teach that class in Times Square. Absolutely. That would have been really kind of right up his alley, you know?
Why didn't he do that? Because he didn't get paid. He wanted money for...
I don't know.
Probably.
We didn't invite him.
Oh, that would be a good reason. Yeah, he would take the spotlight away from everybody anyway, because he would he would start doing a Sinatra song, you know.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what ultimately happened, but he just didn't. I'm not sure how or why, or if we mentioned it to him or not. But Rajashri definitely, you know, was interested in doing it, and she did it, and she's.
Well, so let's tell everybody what that was. That was a yoga on the first day of summer.
Yeah, summer solstice in Times Square. They started a whole thing that they just corded off Times Square for yoga classes throughout the entire day, and we were one of the first, you know, studio to be invited to do it, because we were right in the Times Square, you know, area, and we did it every year, you know, since. So
and you also were the official studio, and Bikram Yoga did catch fire. It was the biggest yoga in the world.
Yeah.
And what do you think was the how did you get to be from a cult into a mainstream item? What's your take on that?
From a cult to...
Well, it was a cult following. It was small little groups, and all of a sudden it became the rage, where everybody had to take this Bikram yoga.
I think it's because we were in New York, we were in Times Square, we were getting national coverage, and we were getting the most interesting people like you coming into our studio and everything, and it became the in thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was different because Bikram was Bikram. So when you went to LA, it was all about him, and it was wonderful and great, and to take class with him, all that was fantastic. But you can't scale that. But I was in New York, and we were doing the yoga. It wasn't me. You know what I mean? It wasn't me. Yeah. It was the yoga. It was the business run in a professional way. You know, I tried to make it look nicer than a lot of the yoga studios at that time. You know, little things like that. So I was specifically trying to cater to just everybody, you know, every type of person.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I was like the opposite. I didn't want it to be a cult. I didn't want everybody to be talking about Bikram, 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 Bikram. That's exactly what I didn't want. So that's why I said we sort of, you know, had to have a dance between the two, because of course you wanted to honor him. And of course it was exciting to be part of him and all of that, you know, it was. But you can't run a business if it's all about somebody who doesn't even own the business. You know, it has to be about you and what you're doing in New York in order for it to work. So I think, you know.
I first went to Bikram to a class on Wilshire Boulevard. No, Robertson. It was a smaller one. And you could look out the parking lot when you're looking in the mirror. You could see them towing my car. And you can't leave the class because, you know, an hour and a half you cannot go. There's no water break here. You know, you have to wait until he tells you can have some water, and then that's the only time. But you know who was in the first class? It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
And using a bath towel. You know, I mean, one of those. Well, he is long, you know. No, but you know, there were a lot of celebrities. It was L.A. You know, I mean, it was a Hollywood.
Oh, I was so starstruck. I was just so starstruck. All I know is that when I got back to New York and opened the studio, and people who started to come into the studio, I was just like totally freaked out. I mean, We had like Sandy Duncan, you know, who, again, a Broadway type of star and everything.
Yeah, sure.
Who, you know, I grew up with, you know, and Donna McKechnie, you know, chorus line, and Larry Fuller, the choreographer of Evita, and all these people were taking the class. And I was like, oh my God, I was so excited.
and paying you, and they were giving you money. Yeah.
I was so excited. I just couldn't get over it. I was really, but I tried to be as professional, and I was a professional. I mean, I was
absolutely.
I was in their profession, you know, but I definitely tried to be very low key. I didn't want to, we never asked any favors of any of the stars that came in.
No.
And to be honest, right now, we could use a little help with some of those people right now, because what's happening right now, who knows if we're going to survive. You know, we're trying and we're coming up with different ideas and stuff like that. But
well, we already have six feet of separation on the mats. You already have separation, so that's not a problem. But is everybody sweating in a common room? Is that okay now?
Look, I have no idea. I mean, we are just trying to wrap our heads around this whole thing and what's going to happen.
Haven't figured it out yet. Huh? So
the numbers don't work. The numbers don't work. We're trying to build our online presence, and that's what we really have to do. We have to really make sure that we can try to get people joining us online, because even when we start back in the studio, there's no way it's going to work. You can't have 15 people in a class and make the numbers work. They don't work.
Right.
So we have to get the online going. And, you know, I'd love it if some of our nice customers would come back and join us, like you, so that we can, you know, we can sort of build that presence. And
so where do we go? If we go online, where do we go? What's the?
Well, you just can go to our website, and then it'll.
What's it called now? It's not. It's
bodē. We changed the name. bodē NYC. bodē BODE NYC.com. Yeah.
How did you arrive at that name so that we remember it? What's the initials? Is it
bodē, like body.
Yeah.
Like body, right? Yeah. A play on that, and our tagline is "Hot Bodē, Cool Mind."
Okay.
Like a hot body, and also bodē, like the bodē tree. You know, it's like a play on words, that kind of thing. Yeah. So you just go on the website. It talks about the streaming. You know, you can purchase this. You know, one class online. I'll comp you, you know, I'll give you a few classes, get you back in. You were such a good customer for so long. You know. Are
you teaching at all? Are you teaching?
Yeah.
Oh,
I teach
great.
3 classes a week. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And actually, it's going much, much better than we anticipated. It's actually kind of fun. We can see you. I can correct and everything. I sort of demonstrate a little bit of the postures, and I come up to the computer, and I can see everybody in the class. It's really quite fun, actually. It's working pretty good. And like I said, now that it's getting warmer out, you know, your spaces will be warmer, so it'll be hotter, that kind of thing.
You're doing it from the Hamptons? Is that where you're doing it?
Yeah, right now. That's where I am right now.
Yeah? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I do it right here. I mean, I just stand right here, and I do the class here. Yeah.
That's the bodē body.
Yeah, bodē body. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, what do we think about Bikram right now that he's all deposed? Are we, you know, I always liked him, and I was friends with him, and I did some videos, and I did the first one, you know, with him.
Yeah.
And he was always a toughie. I mean, he never did anything that he never did it the way I would have done anything. So, I mean, I already know who he is. And he was a very strange business person. Yeah. I don't know if you ever knew this or not, but I made a deal with him to do the first ever Bikram Yoga. And he told me that if I got this money, that we would do it. So I went to Pat Boone. Did you know about the story? I don't know if you ever knew this.
I think you told me. I think you did, but all I know is that no matter what deal you tried to make with him, it never worked. No matter who it was, no matter what, it never, ever worked. So it's too bad, because honestly, a lot of people had a lot of good ideas and a lot of good things that could have worked very well. And it's just a shame that he never sort of handed over the reins sooner and had other people in charge and doing what they needed to do to protect him. They could have protected him. and then we would be in a different place. But because of the way it was run and everything was dependent on him, look what it did to all of us now. You know, I mean, he went down and he took everybody down with him. Sort of, not really, because we reinvented and we're not, you know, we're managing, like we survived, let's put it that way. But he took a lot of people down with him, a lot of people.
Well, I mean, I don't ever remember the foolishness going on in my relationship with him. I know he was always had a good eye for women, but so what? You know, that's okay. And I thought he was a flirt, and he also was a showman. You know, he made inappropriate comments all the time.
Right.
But that was how he said, "Oh, you're a fat ass. You're never going to have good sex." You know, I would tell you that that's part of his shtick in the class. But some of it, I guess, was a little bit too real.
And I didn't know either. To be honest, I didn't know either. I didn't know all these things that were going on either.
No,
so
I didn't know it.
It was kind of like, And
when I left LA and I came to New York, I was totally disconnected because I was on the air, and I went to your place, all of your studios, all the time.
Yeah.
And all I know is we ran a very good, clean shop. I mean, you were terrific, and I credit my health to you. I tell you that all the time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, listen, I'm getting the eyes about dinner here. I could go on forever chit-chatting away. I don't, that's
because of the yoga, you will go on forever.
Well, thank you.
And we're going to have a bodē body. I'm going to come online with that thing now.
No, please do. And Frank, come on too. Definitely. No, we really, that's what we need right now. We need a lot of support online, and we have to figure out how we're going to get back into the studio and all of that stuff. So here we are, but we're still here, right?
You'll love it. Well, thank you so much for spending this time today. You're an amazing lady, and you came up and never complained about anything. All right, well, let's get this bodē. We got to get people move your booty on bodē.
Okay.
That's the only thing you never wanted to say.
I know,
all right, let us smile, be your umbrella, but don't get a mouthful of rain.